Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Just thought I would pop in and connect with you guys on this American Thanksgiving Day and talk about gratitude and how thankful I am for my followers and for the community that we're building and the exciting year ahead in the 2020 astrology. So I had some technological issues, but I'm here now. So hopefully some people will come and find the group. So I'm just going to start out talking about a little bit about this time of year and this holiday and my gratitude, as well as what's going on in the stars. And then hopefully you guys can come in and ask me some questions. So this time of year, every year, and this is in the Northern Hemisphere, we go into a darkness, right? We go into the days getting shorter. And then at this point in time, right around the American Thanksgiving, is when the sun typically goes into Sagittarius. And that is a shifting point. And so every year we have this journey where we go into the darkness and face those dark days, find our light within, and reemerge. And that's the time in the holidays when we celebrate the light within, celebrate the light with all of us, and celebrate the light returning at the solstice. So this in Rudolf Steiner and the Waldorf schools talk about this time. He calls it Michaelmas time. So it starts at the September 29th is Michaelmas Day, and associated with St. Michael, and he's slaying the dragon. So that's kind of the energy of this time of the year. We're slaying the dragon, going in, and then coming back out with victorious. And the Thanksgiving is the end of the Michaelmas season, or around that time when the sun goes into Sagittarius. And so this slaying the dragon was a very, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because this year, 2019, was very, very intense because we went deep into the depths, into the darkest times. I mean, because of the Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, right? So this particular year of going into the dark time was very, very intense. And we're still coming out of that because Mercury doesn't come out of its retrograde shadow until December 8th, although it is moving forward and we are having that display of what Mercury found in the underworld. And right along with the holiday season. So, and so, then we had this massive activation of galactic light into our lives with Jupiter and Venus on the galactic center. And so the last couple of weeks have been this like big infusion of light. So we went down into the darkest dark and then up into the brightest light. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the seasonal shift and the energies of this time of the year. At least it's associated with the Northern Hemisphere, and how intense that has been this year. But it is about preparing us for what's coming in 2020. And so the other thing I wanted to talk about is that this time of the year, I'm feeling a lot, maybe it's this deep dive in Scorpio for people, these souls that are generally called to this work, indigo souls, light worker souls, our star seeds, often have a difficult time around the holidays because they generally feel, and this is kind of part of the plan, it's part of the program, but it's not necessarily fun, but I'm feeling it a lot this year, I think because of this deep dive in Scorpio, where there's a lot of isolation feelings. And I wanted to talk about that and kind of get our community together and put out a message around the fact that we aren't alone. That's an illusion. And what's happening is we're actually overcoming the illusion of separation. So a lot of these souls have spent lifetimes isolated from other people like them. This is part of the plan. It's part of the agenda of the dark forces, because the power when we're together in if we come into our light and then we're together in our light, of course, it's contagious and it's amplified. But we've all been programmed to feel like a target. And so if one of us is a target, then two of us, a community of us, is going to be way more of a target, right? So there's all kinds of levels of blocks that keep these souls from finding each other. And yet that is a big part of the spiritual ascension process. In the past, spiritual ascension has happened with one master in this recent part of our Earth evolution. We've had these one masters that have come to the Earth and shown us what is possible for all of us. And yet, and then that one master demonstrates what we all are learning how to do. And now the energies it's happening. We are in full on ascension energies. But this time, now we're going in groups. And so you can see that the forces of control, their agenda is to keep us from spiritual ascension. Because when we evolve in our consciousness, then it's game over for them. They can't feed on us anymore. And this is a lot of the energy that's been going on with that deep dive retrograde in Scorpio, is pulling back our energy from what we've been feeding. And so, and recognizing where we in our own psychology have been feeding the energies, the very energies that we are trying to go up against. And so we are moving into these ascension energies, and it's bringing up a lot of feelings of like a deep desire for your soul group. And maybe it was like, it's okay, you have people around you, you have family, but nobody that you can really connect with on this deep soul level. And that I'm just feeling that a lot this year, and that people are feeling like isolated, and recognizing that this might be a pattern in their life from their early childhood, and then probably most definitely a lifetime pattern. And so these types of souls have come to the earth in this incarnation to get a whole bunch of karmic work done. Finally, the energies are supporting deep karmic work that hasn't been available to you over many lifetimes. So it's almost like you've had these lifetimes of being not really feeling like you're able to get anywhere on your spiritual path and purpose. And so this lifetime, there's like a laundry list, looking at people's astrology charts and what's going on now in the sky, and what these souls, the huge amount of karmic work that they wanted to get done here so they could take advantage of these energies. But that's not easy. And one of the ways it seems like these souls have gone about this deep karmic work is to choose very karmic relationships in early childhood with their parents. And that's not fun, but it seems to be something that across the board indigo souls have chosen. And so those energies are, it's very, very difficult because, and also there's a gap in consciousness typically between you and your parents. And so it's kind of like they're just not capable of, even if there isn't outright abuse, it's like they're incapable of recognizing you as a soul spirit. And that's so much of who you are, and it's so much of why you're here, that it is just a completely invalidating and fractionalizing situation. And so but when we're a child, our ego is not yet formed, and so it actually gives us an opportunity to do some of this deep dark work. And the picture I've gotten is that maybe these souls wanted to pull these patterns that have been keeping them in this wheel of samsara, repeating the patterns over lifetimes, like so much that they wanted to create those early in life so that they could pull them out by the roots. And difficult karmic relationships like this keeps coming up in individual sessions and astrology charts. The theme of maybe choosing your parents, your arch nemesis, like they've actually persecuted or killed you in a past life. Not very fun, because then you're showing up and you are revealing their shadow energies that they might not be capable of addressing. And of course, then it's team scapegoat, and they're going to take it out on you. So that brings a lot up emotionally at this time of year with the holidays for these soul groups. And this particular year, because we've had such that deep dive in Scorpio and then back to the light of Sagittarius, it's like really coming up on the surface. And the reason why it's coming up, the message I'm getting, is this delusion of separation, that those situations that I just outlined actually don't have anything to do with our ultimate truth of who we are, and that we are connected. We've always been connected. And we've fallen away from that in our consciousness. And that was part of the plan too. So part of the reason why we had this fall in the Atlantean time, this fall of consciousness, because in Atlantean time, this was like close to the numbers I've gotten is around 100,000 years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And we were accelerating and moving close to spiritual ascension. And then time and time again, those control energies, that's when they entered into our planetary realm and are blocking that spiritual ascension, because the lower dimensional energies, once we raise our consciousness, they can't be on the planet anymore. It cannot host them. And that's what's happening right now. And we're in the final throes of a battle where we've already won on some level, but they're not going to give up easily. They're not going to just be like, oh, okay, you guys can go ahead and have your spiritual ascension. They are going to fight to the death, to the end, but it's all about everything that's happening to us right now is about overcoming so that we can know that we're ready for spiritual ascension. And so there's all kinds of programming and stuff that's coming up, fear programming coming up, where we've been told it's somehow dangerous or we need a catastrophe. That is a lie. I've been shown again and again that is very deliberate programming. And here we are, we're doing it. And it's that key to the spiritual ascension is these soul groups finding each other and working together and overcoming those blocks, overcoming that belief system that you are totally and completely alone, overcoming that belief system that you don't deserve to have your soul group, or that something bad will happen to you guys if you find each other. And this has become a passion of my work and a really big focus as I move into my professional life in 2020. So I look forward to working together, helping you guys find each other and building these communities, because this is such a big part of the spiritual ascension work. And so all of this is just really coming to the surface. And I wanted to just show up and connect with you guys here today and talk a little bit about these concepts and say, hey, isolation is a program that you bought into and it's not true, but it really comes up this time of year. And recognizing that you've been gaslit for lifetimes with people around you that completely invalidated your spiritual purpose. It's like, oh, no, that's not important. Oh, you just think you're so special. Oh, and so this is where, with this Jupiter Sagittarius galactic center with Venus activation, this is where we take back our true, we don't have to know what it is or really understand, but we do need to kind of take it back, grab a hold of it, claim our bigger, wider truth. And that's the game over for the control energies, is that when we recognize the bigger part of who we are, we've been living one little sliver of the truth of who we are. And these souls that are on the planet right now, and what I've seen is that these particular souls, very advanced souls, very sensitive souls, and they have gone through many, many evolutions before you even came to this earth. And in the past, through our earth evolution, these groups would come one at a time and kind of trade off, through this earth evolution. And now there is a whole, like, we're all here, and the ones that aren't maybe not in a body, they're playing a huge role from the other side in supporting this spiritual ascension. And so on that note, I'd love to just get in. If anybody has any questions, go ahead and send them through the live chat, and let's just talk about all of this and know that we're together. and nothing can stop what's coming. And we already won, but there's still a lot of garbage to work through and clear out. And but knowing that you have a whole group of people that have gone through incredibly similar past life patterns, you've been working together as a team on projects, and they're out there and they're here, and it's a really exciting time because we're moving into a more proactive time. The last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I don't know how many years it's been about cleaning out, cleaning out, cleaning out. And part of the Capricorn energy, it's a little tough because it's got that authority energy going on in the blocks and the obstructions, but it's also about manifestation and getting down to work on these projects. And then everything changes. I help so many people get on their path or feel like they're moving in that direction. And as soon as that first step and working actively on this bigger part of you and expressing that, a lot of your problems go away. You're just not that concerned that your family doesn't get you. You know what I mean? So anyway, thanks so much for being here and being a part of it and showing up and following and liking and subscribing and being a part of this movement. I'm super excited to grow and come together in real ways over this next year and years to come. So go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to be checking out the chat here. Let me know how you're doing. So Sherry says, why do I feel so angry today? And this might be part of it, with that breaking of the seal of, okay, so in order to come over this illusion of separation, we have to break these ties with the lower vibrational energies. Now, a lot of the big work that I talked about these souls doing in these lifetimes has to do with a bunch of karmic work, because you as an evolved soul coming into this earth evolution, we're also rather naive to the level of duality here. And you got entangled, betrayed, manipulated by these forces. And I know I'm betting that everybody listening can relate to this, where you've had a situation, wrestling with a situation, and the light of the situation and the truth of the situation did not come forward until you recognize, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine that somebody could actually be that mean or cruel, or be that selfish, or be that want to hurt someone like that deliberately. I just couldn't. It was like you weren't able to see how negative those forces were because you were naive to it. And this is a story that's played out through our evolution. So we came here and we had this big bright light to share, and we just want to help and want to heal and shine. And then the forces just, picked us apart, blamed us for horrible things, manipulated us into situations that we're still working out karmically, and basically separating ourselves from that bigger, wider truth, and at the same time creating these karmic relationships. And so we've got these entanglements with. Now, it's really interesting because in studying the Edgar Cayce work, what came through in Edgar Cayce readings, it was really helpful for me, because he talked about how there's like your regular karma in the way that you would think of karma, like tit for tat, right? So you hurt somebody in a certain way, and then you're going to experience that in your body and in this life, right? But a lot of these souls are not dealing with that level of karma. They're dealing with a same karma. So it's interesting because in the Hermetic teachings, there's this. This is where homeopathy came from. There's you can cure through similars, and you can cure through opposites. So Western medicine is trying to cure through opposites, like, oh, inflammation, make it go away. And homeopathy is like, hey, the body is like trying to do something. Let's support it. Let's give it the same energy and tell it the message it needs to heal itself, right? And so this karma is like karma, and it's the same karma that plays out again and again. And it's often the same exact soul or group of souls showing up and doing the same exact thing to you until you stand up and say no. And that is what's going on for so many people right now. And it's really hard and it's really intense, but at the same time, that whole group energy of connecting in our soul groups and feeling that connection to each other and recognizing we're all going through it together gives us strength. And to say, you know what, I didn't, and then we beat ourselves up because we're like, oh man, I should have, I'm so intuitive, I should have seen it, but it's because you're so trusting. And it's like your own intuition, your own light being used against you. And so you have to understand that these forces are feeding on your light, and we've allowed this to happen. But the only way they can continue to feed on your light. So this is often what happens with this type of soul is in your family, you're the weird one, you're the black sheep, you're the broken one, you're the this and that and the other thing. And then it really turns out that you're the light and you're the source and you're the hope. And you're the one that people want around you when shit's going down. And yet they cannot value you because you know why? If they valued you, you'd go away because you'd see who you were and you'd stop feeding the bullshit. So they have to disempower you and devalue you in order to keep you around as food, right? As a food source. So I don't know for sure, but Sherry, maybe that anger has to do with that. Like waking up to these patterns where you've given yourself away, where you've it can be so subtle sometimes, and a pattern that you're used to over lifetimes. And anger can be very powerful emotion used in the right way. That's why we have it. It's associated with Mars. And of course, it's going to be coming up right now with Mars opposite Uranus. They're done with their exact, but we're still going to be feeling it for a couple more days. And Mars has that anger and that frustration, but Mars is also how we move forward and do stuff. And it's our will, right? And so it was powerful to see this Edgar Cayce, the karma coming through these readings, what he talked about, because basically this karma is when you did not act and you allowed yourself to be bowled over. And now we're being called to act, and it is intense and powerful, but scary, brings up a lot of fear programming and of course isolation because you're cutting yourself off. And it's like, well, it's kind of fake love and I'm not a true connection, but at least it's something, right? So it's all goes together. So let's see about any questions here. So Jan says, how are we doing with this astral battle? Are we making any progress? It seems to be quite a battle this year. She put it in caps. That's good. It was able for me to see it. I'm channeling, energies. I'm talking, the way I see it when I'm doing these presentations is I'm talking to your higher selves and to my higher self and trying to distill the right words and the messages to come through. And so when I'm in that stream, I don't like, and also when I've done live, I don't like it when it's like, going back and forth and interacting. But it's really important to build community. So I'm going to try to do it in a way that can still have that flow in that stream. So how are we doing with the battle? Well, my message is that we've already won. And I know it doesn't feel like it, right? Because we are in that throes, the final throes, and this is a multi-headed monster that has infected all of the systems of our life. We talked about these narcissistic patterns where we're feeding energies, perhaps in our relationships that don't have our best interest in mind. And have you ever had that situation? It's kind of part of the empath journey to have a situation, at least one, or if not many, where you realize that the people you trusted the most, you couldn't trust at all. And that's kind of what's going on in the world right now, is that there's a great revealing of corruption worldwide in all of the systems, in the religious systems, in the financial systems and the government systems. And this is written. This is the time we're at right now, 2020, and this Capricorn energy is about authority. And it's about breaking down the structures of authority that have been no longer serving us. And it's us, it's these souls that need to take their power back, take their light back, and stop feeding that darkness, to stop trying to heal what can't be healed, and stop trying to process karma that's not yours. Because when you were manipulated in these past lives, you were blamed and you took it on. But it's like, okay, so an example comes where you had, maybe you were, often these souls were a leader at some point, and maybe you had some sort of movement, and then you were captured, and then your people came to try to set you free, and they all got killed and you got killed. And so it's not just it's like these people that you cared for and loved and were trying to help, and then you got them killed instead. But you didn't want that. That's not in your vibration. That wasn't there was no intention and energy. And you have to understand that these narcissistic energies on the planet are deliberately doing these things. And yet we're trying to heal the karma that they've created. And so I've been shown that the biggest shift happens when these indigo souls, these first waver light worker souls, empaths, take off this karma that they're trying to carry for the whole planet, for all of humanity, going back to ancient lifetimes, generally old stories. And when they take that karma off and say, wait, I can't heal this isn't mine to heal. Because how many of us have done that in relationships, where it's like you feel for the other person and you know what they're going through, and so you hold their pain because you can. That's who you are. You have the big soul. You can hold thousands of people in your field. But is that really what the best use of your time and energy here? No, it's not. It's dragging you down. And so but it's like the divine timeline energy is landing, and it's that tumbling down the hill thing, where it's like whatever path you had gotten on, it's like knocking you back on. And so in that way, we have already won the battle, except for that now we have to do the cleanup, and it's a multi-headed hydra monster, right? So this monster is everywhere in the systems of our world right now. And it's happened very fast. It's happened through technology, and it's happened through this narcissistic, psychopathic control energy, where actual good humans have been infiltrated with this energy, and their soul, they don't have access to their soul. But what I've been shown is that there's so many. So you, as a light worker soul, this empath, this evolved soul, you've already gone through these types of things before. And so you are more immune to the programming. And that's where we're getting this split in the timelines right now. And so, but the reason why it's taking so long in the first place is because we're trying to take as many souls as we can with us. And of course, the dark side is trying to capture and steal as many souls as they can for food. And so even though we have already won, and there's nothing that can stop this ascension and the divine timeline, there is a lot of cleanup to do. And we're on the front lines of that work right now. And know that, like, I'm getting this message huge, that like every session, every person I work with directly, and the work we do and the activations, and that is moving a huge energy of collective. So everything you're working on is working on the collective, but you got to self-preserve, and not cut yourself up into pieces and give yourself away to other people and to these sources of energy that you don't want to feed, but we didn't know we were feeding them, right? And so that's kind of the energy. Okay. So Candy says, can you speak on timelines again? And okay, so something that's been out right now, and it's really interesting to to research and a little bit weird and out there. And it goes into this whole, now what I was saying before about this insidious infection of psychopathic narcissistic energies into all the systems of our world. A lot of that. So what I found is that I've been on the spiritual awakening path and wanting to help people with their awakening. And it's like, I know in my soul that this was something, that I didn't know how to do it, but, I knew that from my whole life, I've been just trying to figure out, how to do this and help people and support myself in this process. And in the last few years, what's come to light is that the spiritual awakening that is coming to the planet, that divine timeline, has a lot to do with truth, has a lot to do with lies that we've been told that are now breaking down. And so that feeling of these people you trusted the most and you can't trust them at all, that's kind of what's being kind of coming to the surface. But there's also a whole bunch of technology that's available in our world right now, reverse engineered from alien craft and stuff. And I don't want to get too far out there in this stuff, but one of the really interesting things that's coming around right now is information around what's called Project Looking Glass. And this Project Looking Glass was a project where they reverse engineered a chair. This is like the Montauk Project. And this chair was able to see into the future. And then what happened at 2012 was that there was only one future. There was all these multiple timelines. And then, so even though we didn't have this big event that we felt in 2012, we did. It was just on this level that we couldn't quite ascertain. We didn't see it in our 3D, right? And so there's still forces of energy trying to create another negative timeline, right? And that's where they're trying to create with weather manipulation, like mass catastrophes and staging events, mass casualty events and stuff, to keep us in the fear and the misery. And so they're trying to do that, but the energy that came through that was so profound for these scientists, for these naval people, and they were like, this divine timeline is like landing, and it's the only option. So they're still trying to create another one, but that divine timeline that's what's shaking up our world right now, and shaking up our individual lives. And so now, but what I'm seeing is that we all, part of the deal with the spiritual ascension that we're doing it this way. So we've all gone through, as an advanced soul, part of the thing that makes you an advanced soul is that you've gone through spiritual ascension probably numerous times before you came to this earth evolution to begin with. But that spiritual ascension was done in sleeping consciousness, because oh, okay, now we're all going to do this, and we get a new body and we go to a new level. And, and so essentially it was like a death process in your physical body, not really, but you just get a new body and you just take it up to another octave. The whole deal with this earth experiment is that we're doing it consciously, aware of the process and changing our physical bodies and changing our physical earth to light. Now that in itself tells us that spiritual ascension does not, this spiritual ascension does not involve a catastrophe on the planet. Maybe though, if people really want that and need that, there's going to be another alternate timeline. I don't know, because see, the deal with this conscious spiritual evolution is that we all have to choose it. We live in a free will universe. And so we each have to say, yes, I want to spiritually ascend. And so if the souls that are not ready for that and don't want that, perhaps they can choose a misery timeline. But I think the message I'm getting is that would take place on kind of a whole different, almost like Earth could split off into the divine timeline, and then there would be another kind of old, kind of a simulation that would continue for those souls in a way. And so what I've seen is this massive trajectory, and why people are having so much upheaval in their life right now, because these timelines are about to go, they've been parallel. So we could kind of decide if we want to be on or off. And of course, there's multiple options for a lot of people, depending on what you've experienced in your past lives. But there's this massive trajectory going with the divine timeline. And if it's like, are you on the ship? Are you on the ship? Are you deciding that you want this on our Earth ship, our beautiful Earth ship? Because Earth has already decided to do this 5D transformation. And it's already happening. It's right there. And so, So even though there's just the one divine timeline as far as this earth and our process with our mother earth right now, there is other still choices for other people, that misery timeline. And that's partly what's going on for people. A lot of what's coming up for people right now is loyalty contracts. And it's kind of like, well, how can I go and leave people behind, like in my family, even though they may have abused me, or they may have continually invalidated me. They might be feeding on my light while keeping me, um, down. But still, I feel loyal to them, and I feel that I need to save everyone. And that's kind of why you're here, because that's our mission, to bring as many souls as we can. But it's also the time where we need to self-preserve and save ourselves and contain our light. And so timelines, the way I've understood timelines is that we have multiple options, and that's our free will energy. But the shift that's happening right now is pushing us all into this divine timeline if we're choosing that. And a lot of us have already chosen that before we came into this incarnation, so it's not a choice. And so it feels like we're being pushed into something that we might not be ready for or know what's going on. And that's kind of the deal. The deal with the trajectory on this timeline is that it's turning, and so we can't see what's around the bend. And it's very disconcerting, but it's good, because it's kind of like our ego death. It's like your little brain and your little personality construct that is like what you use to get through this life has no idea what's going on. And that's of course that makes sense, so stop trying. Of course, it's easier said than done, right? But that's a little bit more about timelines. In the sessions that I do, the way timeline alignments happen is going back like a computer. Say if you've got a virus on your computer, and then you would go back in your timestamp on that computer. And that's kind of what we're doing, is like going back into a timeline on the earth when you were embodying your gifts and skills and like really enjoying yourself in that, and then reset your vibration. And that reset, that can help you reset to that ideal timeline. And that was a cool thing that Edgar Cayce talked about a lot. He used this word ideal. And that's really great, because it's like, yeah, I don't know what it is. And how do I manifest if I don't know? And how do I hold the vision if I have no freaking idea what's going on? And I don't even know if we're getting anywhere, But the ideal is something you can grab a hold of, because it can change and shift, and it doesn't have to be one specific thing right now that you can grab a hold of, So I kind of like that concept. Okay. Okay, Christy wants to talk about vegetarianism and veganism. My information around this is that there's different bodies on the planet. Okay, and this does correspond to, I don't know if you're familiar with the blood type diet, but different bodies have different protein needs. Okay, so some bodies are actually healthier eating really good, clean meat if it's available, a little bit of it. It's very healthy for some bodies. That does not make you a narcissist predator, and then some bodies do not do well with meat at all, and also those bodies don't do well with dairy generally, right? And as a sensitive soul, it makes sense that like you don't want to harm the animal, but if you are able to get animal products that where the animal was treated very well. So some of these lineages have come in with higher protein needs, and they actually brought in certain animals with them, like the Native American tribes, the ancient tribes brought in the buffalo and the salmon, because that was their higher protein need for their particular body. So there's no hard and fast rules around diet, except for that a cleansing diet is really helpful to clean the parasitic energies of this world. And that is staying away from grains and sugars and anything with grains and sugars, because those feed the bacteria in our body. And a lot of the disease protocol paradigm agenda that wants to keep us sick um, all those pathogens feed on sugars. And so a cleansing diet where you are doing lots and lots of greens and vegetables and, vegetable juices, herbal teas, broth, and that kind of thing is one of the best ways to help yourself with negative emotions. It's really quite powerful and not that easy because everything in our world is working against it. And you'll notice this. You'll like, especially with the early childhood issues we talked about, this isolation feeling, then if we didn't feel like we got what we needed, then of course we're going to go to food and comfort foods, and of course this is a big holiday for in the US for comfort food. It's like starch explosion. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit about, now there's a weird thing about this that came through early in my work, in the intuitive work. A crazy energy came through of in the Far East, an agenda of where the elite class wanted the meat for themselves. And so they created an agenda that it wasn't good for you. And so the vegetarian, vegan, I mean, it's nothing again. Everybody gets to have their own ideas, right? But it was an interesting thing to see that these it was an agenda to get people off of a meat-based diet onto a plant-based diet so that the elite class could have that meat for themselves and have that supply for themselves. So that's just something that happened in history at some point. And I know that, like it's a very personal choice. And like I said, there's different bodies types with different needs. And so it's a very individual choice. And as sensitive soul, it may not feel right to eat animals or to eat dairy products. And yet you might be of a different, it's interesting. So it's the O blood types, they do better with meat. They need more protein and they don't do well with like legumes and grains, and then the A blood types is our most common blood types. They do better with, they do better with the legumes and the legumes and the grains and not so well with the meat and the dairy. So anyway, different bodies, different needs. And so there's no hard and fast rules about that. And it's a very individual process for everyone. So, question from Bert: how about the work of the twin flames and the balance of our planet? I have not gotten definitive feelings about this twin flame thing. There's so many different ideas out there about it. I've had one session where I did read what appeared to be a twin soul, and they actually needed a soul separation in order to go on with their own destinies. And so it wasn't an appropriate relationship at that time. They needed a soul retrieval from each other. But I don't know for sure if that was like a twin flame thing. And so what I understand is that we have a soul group, and this is what Edgar Cayce says, is we have a soul group of potential soulmates, and there's like 30, up to 30 of them is what he said. And then, so it's like wherever you're at in your life, there could be this soulmate energy, and soulmates come together to help each other grow. And soulmates can see each other for who they are. They support each other in their evolution. They want to see each other shine. It's generally a feeling like you can trust them. And but there's a really confusion energy there because a lot of these deep karmic relationships with, say, the narcissist energies, that is something that all empaths have to go through, it seems like, but they might present themselves as a soulmate. And so that's kind of, it's just very confusing. I don't have any solid answers for you, but ultimately the twin soul thing does make sense on some level, except for that what we're really doing here is coming into balance. We're really here to open our cosmic heart consciousness and move into that higher vibrational consciousness, that 5D energy and higher dimensions even. And that, in order to do that, you have to balance your male and female within. And so it is a beautiful thing, either soulmate or twin flame relationships, when they can like hold that, whatever body they're in, and it can be whatever sex and whatever body, because we have an inner orientation and an outer orientation, so, but one's holding the male female and one's holding the female energy, and a beautiful energy there. But really, ultimately, this is what we have to do this within us. So find balance. And it seems like our relationships a lot of times are here to balance out that male and female energy. Rosemary is saying, please explain breaking the seal. And I don't know what that means. um, there's a few things I've heard around the chakra system and how maybe there's seals on our chakra system. And some people, even there's some people out there that say we have to get rid of our chakras, which no, 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 no. I know for sure that that's not the truth, because our chakra system is our energetic communication between our physical body and our electrical body, our aura and electromagnetic field, and our whole energy body. And so we don't want to get rid of those chakras, but our chakras have been deliberately blocked by the control energies too. So there's can be like a false chakra in a way. And so I have heard breaking the seals of the 7 seals and breaking out of that control energy in our chakras into our true communication with our energy body. And so I'm not sure what I said before that sounded like that, but sorry, I don't know what that means. Yes, Bert, it is all about balancing between feminine and masculine energies in our own body. And this is the thing, it's like as much as we all have male and we all have female, and we have our different orientations, right? So in ancient Egypt, supposedly, they had this whole thing where they wanted to incarnate in all of these 8 versions, where, you had your male orientation in a female body and a female orientation, a male body, and then switching it all up and around, right? But what I've been shown in part of the agenda that's keeping us down is a blurring of these lines. There's a huge agenda to take away the male and female. And that is what robots are, not humans. And I've had a very powerful insight and information come in around that agenda, because we're in duality consciousness. And in order to get out of duality consciousness, we need to have our male and female to work against each other and come back together. And so that's how we escape out of this lower dimensional reality. And the agenda that wants to take away sex orientation is also the agenda that wants to turn us into AI mechanisms. And so it is incredibly powerful, because like I said, we cannot activate our heart consciousness until we balance out the male and female. Now, this is really interesting, because we have, the male and female sides of our brain, the right and left brain. And there's a very tiny area of communication, just barely able to communicate. And this is an agenda that started back in Atlantean time. They actually had a big island that was like the control center for Atlantis, like where the government and the schools and the main schools, priestess training and all that, priestess training. And they deliberately cut the island in half. And that's what made our brain into 2 pieces. It was a deliberate program. And now we got to get back together, But if we take away the male and female orientation, then we don't have our way back to source. So it's a really tricky thing. What is your favorite Edgar Cayce book? And I have to say, There Is a River. It's a biography book written about him. And it was written while he was alive by people in his family close to him, and in his family circle. And so that book, even though there's all this great information out there, but that book has the roadmap for the empath soul. I feel like Edgar Cayce, what he showed us is like he kind of paved the way, kind of like in the way that Jesus, or the Christ consciousness incarnating into Jesus's body, is paving the way, showing us what spiritual ascension is really about and what we can all do. And Edgar Cayce showed us the way of the empath, what to do, and maybe a lot of what not to do too, because he really got worked around in this world, and never valued, never treated properly. And so that, but reading that There Is a River book gave me the best impression and sense of who he was, and that message of how we can navigate this world as very sensitive empaths. So really powerful there. Heather, I'm so sorry about your loss. She says she lost a brother and her sister, and feels left behind. And we can't really lose anybody. We don't ever actually die. And so they're there with you. And a lot of times souls in this type of soul, they will choose this, you being this type of soul, those people who pass will choose you to help them. And I have seen the most powerful work happen on a soul level, and gratitude and love happen after a soul passes. So maybe they would like you to be available to come back together as a family in a way that you never could in this planet while they were here. And it's just a most powerful task. This is one of the abilities of these sensitive souls, and it has no value in our world, and yet it's everything. I have seen when you help a soul. So there's a huge agenda in part of this negative agenda energy is to trap us to the earth, trap us into ego. This is how the narcissism got born, is that souls were traumatized so that they couldn't fully leave the planet. And this is actually was very deliberately enacted in ancient Egyptian rituals, like in the sarcophagus and mummification and literally chaining. And then oftentimes, like with leaders in medieval Europe, they would cut their organs out and bury them in the earth after they died. I mean, that's an example of this very deliberate chaining us to the earth. And it's interesting. It makes me think of the Devil Tarot card and the lovers. It's the same picture of the lovers in the traditional decks, chained to the earth, chained to the devil, chained to the materialism. And so when we have traumas and maybe we're taught to fear God, right, through these religious structures of the Piscean age, then it's hard to leave this planet. We're attached, and we feel like if we go meet, we're going to go to hell, right? Or we're going to be punished. And so it's been a very elaborate plan for these souls not be able to fully exit the earth plane. And then when you incarnate again, there's no peace there. So what happens when we pass and we go back to source, we self-reflect as a soul, and we have a whole group of guides and a team that helps us look at our life and decide what we would like to do differently. And so you can see how this narcissist energy, that in its extreme, like people who have this narcissistic thing going on, cannot self-reflect. And that's why, because they are stuck here, chained to the earth, and it's a very deliberate agenda. And so as a powerful soul in the way that you guys are, and you might not even know that you've done this for souls, but being aware of the other side and having that mediumistic ability, and then to hold the hand of that soul as they release this earth plane and know it's going to be okay. Releasing ancestral programming and the fear programming, and that gratitude that comes back from that soul that finally gets to go rest is just beyond what I can even discuss, and so incredibly powerful. And so now there are certain religion structures that work with these souls that are stuck in the astral plane and can't go back to source. Now, this is a big part of the energy of this Scorpio energy we've been feeling over the last few years. A lot of it, like when Saturn was in Scorpio, and now then Venus retrograde last year, and this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, part of the effect that happens with that is this cleansing of the lower astral plane. And it's like souls go home, right? But they're like haunting the earth. And that's a big part of like trying to create the misery timeline. And yet you as a soul have an incredible ability just to be present with that soul. Now it's really beautiful, because when you help them pass and release from this world by holding their hand and being present with them, not letting them live in your body, right? So this is what happens is that they can project themselves. They're scared and they're lost and they don't have a body, and you're there and available and aware and this big energy field. So they come and they'll be in your body. That's not healthy, right? But holding their hand and seeing them making that transition, then they can be an angel for you. And they love that. They love coming back to support you after you've helped them make that shift. So just a little bit more about maybe why it's so intense for these types of souls, because you're doing all this kind of level of work and you have no idea you're doing it. So Truth Shall Rule, talking about regarding sexuality itself and the purpose of sexuality beyond reproduction. So the most powerful force in the whole universe, and this is programming that goes back way before this Earth evolution even started, in a pre-planetary evolution, from what I've been told, where the high priestesses and priests were working with soulmate energy, male and female. Like I said, it doesn't matter if it's two female bodies. One kind of generally plays a male role and a female role, and then you can change off even in complement. But one, two pillars of holding that space of soulmate love in whatever body you are, but holding that male and female energy vibration. And that soulmate love expressed sexually is the most powerful force in the universe. It is exactly the same as electricity. It is what makes worlds. It creates everything. And yet, before this evolution even started, the souls that inhabited this earth and were seated here already had programming around the taboo of sexuality, right? And so it's like, ooh, make it all taboo and then make it all okay, right? And then there's all kinds of sexual distortion in this world, and it dirties and muddies the water and makes all sex bad. And yet sexuality, like I said, soulmate love expressed sexually, that's how people used to create energy. Like literally, like energy that we would, like what we plug into the wall to make our devices run. This is the energy that creates all worlds. And it's really quite profound. I can't quite get into it. It's way bigger, but if you want to learn more about it, it's quite fascinating. They call this energy Birkeland currents. And our whole model that is taught in school, and the whole energy of astronomers and scientists right now, are telling us huge lies about the universe, like how we can't explain dark matter and we can't explain black holes, and the Big Bang Theory is a whole bunch of hogwash. And so there's this concept called the electric universe, and it makes everything make sense. And so this electric universe is talking about how our universe is electric and magnetic, and everything is polarity. Like that goes back to the male and female, right? Manifested world, 3D reality is made through polarity consciousness, or through polarity. Like we cannot have manifested 3D physical world without polarity consciousness. And so if you take that away, like I said, you're taking away our way out of the duality consciousness. And so this is, if you are interested in finding out more about this, the YouTube channel is the Thunderbolts Project. And they talk about the research, the true research about what's really going on out there. And we have an electromagnetic, electric universe, and it explains everything that the scientists can't explain. And yet they don't want us to know, right? Because it's going to set us free. And it's free energy. So these concepts of perpetual motion and toroidal fields and plasma technology, they're saying that plasma technology is what we see in the cosmos and what creates everything. And that's actually what we can create through soulmate sexual love. Soulmate love expressed sexually in the higher octave, and can create energy, literally energy, free energy. So it's a big threat to our whole system. It's one of those truths that can break down everything. But if you want to learn more about it, check out Thunderbolts Projects and the Electric Universe. Okay, so Sepper Sami says, I would like to know, what is your advice on shadow work? And this is really interesting because this has come up so much with this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, and Mercury's still in Scorpio, and it's all coming to the surface now. And we can get really lost in the shadow work. We can get so shadowed out. And the problem with it is that I start identifying with the shadow, and we start identifying with these horrible things that have happened to us, and we make them a part of our identity. So there's a little bit of a distortion there. And the big message I got with these souls, the ones that you guys showing up and being interested in this, and, you know, just your vibrational energy coming to be here together today, the shadow work that you're doing is what I was talking about earlier. If you missed it, go back and catch the replay, but talking about the energies we carry for other people and the karma that we're carrying for the collective and for the dark forces, and trying to heal that within ourselves. And we cannot heal that karma. It's not ours to heal. And we're carrying energies of the collective, like heavy energies of pain and suffering. Like, how can you be here on the planet and be happy? How can you move into these higher frequency vibrations when all these people are suffering, and you came here to help with people's suffering? And yet the only way to get them to come with you is to show them the way to go, and that self-preservation and choosing that divine timeline, that ideal timeline. So the shadow work has to do with uncovering the things that have happened to us, and that, of course, now shadow by definition says hidden, right? And that means subconscious. So it's cool to go uncover these things. And that's all the work I do, or in the intuitive sessions, it's about going to find what we can't get to in our consciousness, right? Because those are the things that keep coming and affecting us and getting us into this loop of creating the same pattern again and again, you know, and you're like, wake up and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing this out again. I thought I totally dealt with this, right? And that's because it's in our subconscious, and then we're creating out of our subconscious. And that's kind of what the shadow energies on the planet want us to do, right? Keep creating trauma, keep creating misery. And that's the biggest mystery, is that these souls are projector souls of reality. And so no wonder you've been beaten down over lifetimes, because that's what they want you to project. They want you to project catastrophe and trauma and misery. And it's like, we're coming out of it. We've already come out of it. Like, enough people have already come out of it, and it's changing every single day with these new energies coming in. So shadow clearing is about clearing the subconscious programming, which isn't who you are. See, a lot of times we go into the shadow work and then we get identified with the shadow, and it's like, oh, I'm a victim and I can never change, and it's just who I am, and, you know, I'll always be an alcoholic, you know, or whatever. And it's like, no, stop identifying with the shadow. And that's the true shadow work. And a lot of times you'll find that is actually shadowy energies that you were programmed with, manipulated with, and took the karma on of other people. You know, so a lot of times, like Stockholm syndrome, when someone is abused and then they develop a bond with their abuser, and they feel sorry for their abuser. And this happens so much with empaths. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want that person to suffer. But it's like, they need that suffering to grow. And that suffering is keeping you from growing. And so, but it's hard because these loyalty contracts and being so sensitive, and you can feel what they feel, you know? And so we've got these narcissists that don't feel and don't care. And they're just creating negative karma because they believe they're outside of the karmic cycle, but it will come back to them, you know? And then we've got the empaths that are like taking it all on, and, you know, it's just like, got to get a rebalancing there. So a lot of that shadow work is clearing what you're holding for other people and going deep into that subconscious to recognize that those patterns are not who you are. It's a disidentifying with them. And that's huge with this Chiron and Aries, because Chiron and Aries is like, get up, stand up for your rights, be, you know, and your individual rights, and to be who you are. And it's a rebirth in our identity. And we're feeling this right now. Where are we at with these transits? Right now, actually, yesterday was the exact square with Venus and Chiron. So Venus, you know, our feminine side, and a lot of the shadowy energies around being an empath live there. And then in square to Chiron at 1 degree Aries, which is like the initiatory degree, and Aries is the initiatory sign of the zodiac. And so it's like a new self, and I'm going to live true to who I am, and I'm going to do it, and it's kind of powerful, because it wouldn't be so powerful if Venus didn't just go over the galactic center with Jupiter, and it's like, but at the same time, that energy coming into our life, that empowerment, it breaks down and it creates chaos for a while, and it isolates us, and it makes us confused and like not know where we're going. But just day by day, moment by moment right now, and claiming that true self. And that's the self that is disidentified from the shadow. It's like, yeah, all that stuff happened to me, but it doesn't define me. Actually, it actually validates who I am as a bigger, wider, helpful soul, because why would I have been such a target? The most powerful and most advanced souls that I work with are the most broken from these, because if you've had this type of abuse in this lifetime, it's happened in past lives. And so again, it's that karma where you're here to stay, to say no to those patterns, to say no to the identity that everybody else wanted to create for you, and be true to your own identity. But when you first do that, it feels very lonely, very scary, and like very much isolation. And so I think that's why I was called to do this Q&A today. Okay, so any other questions? It's really great connecting with you guys. So Roxanne says, what can you say about the rest of life, non-human on the planet, who looks out for them, which would be the animals and the plants, I assume. And it's interesting because I guess a really sweet energy, a lot of the work, if you've done any of my activations, we always, connect with Mother Earth and look at that communication with Mother Earth. And the messages that, it's so interesting because we've got, part of the misery timeline is this global warming thing, and this, constant, all of these bad things are going to happen on our planet, right? And it's bad, 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 bad. And yet we're going to come to find out that a lot of the bad things that have been happening have been manipulated electromagnetically, or, through weather manipulation and stuff like that. And when we talk to Mother Earth more and more increasingly, she's like, you guys, I've got this handled. It's totally cool. Like, you cannot scratch the surface of her love. Like, go do some fracking. It is not going to do anything to her. And she's got the animals, and she's got the plants. And we're going to come to find out that a lot of what we've been told was global warming and climate change is not at all that. And so a lot of the messages are that the Earth is our spaceship. The Earth has said yes to the divine timeline. And this is in the Gaia codes, ancient codes, the original codes of this planet, hidden deep into the highest mountains and the caves and the waters. They have these DNA codes of the Gaia codes. And these are there, and they're getting activated right now. And the Earth is so powerful and regenerative, and she can just handle it all. And we're going to be moving with her on this journey, and they want us to think that to disconnect from the Earth and to feel unsafe here, and to feel like we're going to lose the Earth if we have spiritual ascension. That's been a huge agenda that I was talking about earlier. And it's not true. We're going with the Earth, and she's got us, and we've got her, and together we're doing it. And so she's got the animals and the plants handled, and they have their own what I've been shown is that they have their own, if you have a heartbeat, it's a list of animals. If you have a heartbeat, then you have an electromagnetic field that's created by that heartbeat. It goes back to that electric universe energy, toroidal field. It's a toroidal field. And animals have that intact. We have it intact when we're born too, typically, but we lose it right away. And as far as our awareness and how to work with it in a spiritual way, but the animals have that intact and connected to the electromagnetic field of the Earth. So they're fine. And they're here to help us. And and of course we want to help them too. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I can like handle all kind. This is kind of the clue of this type of sensitivity soul, and I can handle all kinds of things that I can understand that people have to go through their suffering. And then when I see an animal suffer, it's like, ooh, it's really, really hard. So Laura says, "Is climate change a hoax?" My intuition says yes, and that's my feeling as well too. The science just doesn't back it up, and it's an agenda. It's an agenda to, and I mean, okay, so let's just go back up to where we were talking about the Berkeley currents and the free energy. And there's actually a patent earlier this year that the Navy put out, a public patent around free energy. And it just kind of went under the radar. Nobody even knew about it. Free energy is right there, And so, but the climate change agenda is to get more control over our lives. Like I just heard that, like in certain counties in California, if you build, you have to do all of these things to be energy efficient, and they're not letting them have natural gas and all that stuff. And it's like, if we have free energy, I mean, they're talking about, this patent is about a little box. It's about a meter wide, and it makes more electricity, like 10 times or 100 times more than our biggest, most efficient nuclear reactor. So we got to kind of go with the whole thing of like, carbon neutrality and all that, because it's so anyway, just knowing that free energy is there, it helps us see that the climate change agenda might have some holes in it. And all the scientists that have spoken up against it get persecuted. And so it's like, if you want to have your life and you want to have your degrees and you want to have your, support by the governments and stuff, and the UN is a big energy behind this, then you're going to go along with our agenda. And so, yeah. Yes, Deanna says Gaia gives us everything for free. And that's the thing, it's like regenerative. Gaia, our earth, is like, she remakes herself again and again, and this is it's interesting, the whole Venus activation, because this free energy, it's based on perpetual motion. And perpetual motion is created by that toroidal field, which is the feminine. So what we're dealing with right now, the electricity we're using is a masculine electricity, and the energy that runs the universe is a feminine electricity. And literally, we have this in our own bodies. We could charge our devices, and yet, of course, they don't want to let us know about this. If free energy, when it does come out, it's inevitable. But, we have to rearrange our whole economy, because everything's based on the petrodollar. And that's what's been used to control us, so. Wesley says, how does Adrian deal with normie folks? Well, that's a good question. Because I've had situations a lot in the last few years where I've been called to be a part of very much establishment and place. But, the more you get into your center and be present with what's happening, the easier these interactions are. And instead of feeling like so many of these souls feel there's that programmed fear around whether it's okay to be who you are. And you can project that energy. But the more solid we get and autonomous and holding our space, then these interactions are beautiful. And whatever you have, you can bring your energy of healing in just gentle and, and harmonious ways, without disruption and without conflict. But it means that you have to come from a place of neutrality and a center. And so, but it's hard because we've all been the scapegoat, right? We've all been blamed. So what happens when you're very empathic and you're very intuitive, and this happens with a lot of people with a lot of times Scorpio in their chart, have a way of moving energy and bringing clarity. And this is what I do all day long, right? Like I'm moving energy for people in the job, in my work on psychic energy. And what I found was for years, I'd go out into the world and I'd start moving psychic energy. I didn't mean to, it's just kind of what happens. And then people don't want to look at that stuff. And so what are they going to do with it? They're going to blame you. Like you lit it up in their field. And so then it's your problem. And that's team scapegoat. But once you get a handle on and clear these projections and clear any of that, just owning the truth of who you are, and then you can just be present, and it's a totally different energy, because you're like, I don't know. I just kind of like being around you. And of course, then there's the whole other piece of people wanting, to feed on your energy. Because once you contain it and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep this for myself and I'm going to stop feeding the negative forces. And then of course you have to deal with that whole thing. And that's a whole elaborate energy around, when we move into our higher vibrational frequency and we start shining our light, we start containing our energy, then we have to deal with all of the programming that says it's something shameful, we don't deserve it, why should we have it when these other people don't have it, and we should feed it out to them, and then maybe they'll come and tear us down, they'll be mad at us for having it, or competitive with us, or it's dangerous for us. And so, but then you go to take it to the next level, and your light gets so strong that it's its own protection. That has to do with the crown chakra. A little bit too much to go into right now, but that is the shift that happens in, and I go really in depth with all of these concepts in the intuitive training, if that's something you're interested in. And but as you hold your space and you're neutral and you love who you are and you're owning it, then it doesn't have such that effect and on people as much anymore. It's like, as long as you're hiding from your power and you're unsure about it and you're not fully owning it, that's when it makes other people uncomfortable. But it is quite a deal to deal with. It's a huge part of the spiritual evolution that we're going through right now, is getting comfortable with your light. And this is the weirdest thing. I've done this work for so many years and just came across this in the last few months. The shame energy that I couldn't get a handle on in these indigo souls. Like, why do they feel so shameful? And of course, there's programming in past lives of it's all your fault and you caused the Atlantean catastrophe and that kind of thing. But we have been programmed to feel shame around our light. And exactly that, like, why should you have it when I don't get to have it? And it's like, no, I'm showing you what's possible for you, right? But in order to do that, you got to totally and completely own it and know you deserve it and know it's yours. Nobody else can really use it, really. So it's better if we own it. But there's a lot of energy there around like feeling like we'll go to start shining and then we'll feel guilty and shameful about it. And it makes no sense whatsoever, because it's such a beautiful thing and the planet needs it so badly right now, and so, but just understanding that there's that programming there. Now, being an advanced and more evolved soul does not make you better than other people, right? It's not about being better or worse. It's just thousands of more lifetimes, right? Like thousands and thousands of more lifetimes in experience. And it's like, we've got to stop dumbing ourselves down to the level of the people around us to make them feel comfortable, and once you own it and you feel more comfortable in yourself, then it's more harmonious. And they're like, oh, I just kind of like your energy. It's not so disruptive, and but it's quite a process, and it's really powerful. And then that the secondary feeling. So first the shame comes, and then there's this feeling of being attacked, because the more light you've had, the more you've been attacked in past lives. And I've actually literally seen it, like higher dimensional forces that aren't as high as where we came from, but are the control energies, almost like looking down at the earth, and they can see when one pops up, right, out of the matrix. And it's like, oh, go push that down. Oh, another one, and this is part of the programming, coming back to where we started, a really good place to kind of come to completion, is that it's part of the programming that keeps these soul groups from finding each other. Because if one of you is going to be a target, then you can handle that kind of. But if you and your friend, and then you're making your friend a target or whatever, that doesn't feel good. And so there's just so much programming that keeps us from finding our soul group, our true soul group, the group we've been together from the beginning of time. We've had very similar past life pictures. You recognize them, you trust them. They want to lift each other up and support each other, not compete with each other. It's like more is more light, more love, more fun. And yet we can't, it's like so much blocks to finding each other for all of these reasons. And maybe that reason is because of our potential. Because I've seen in past lives that like, okay, so say this energy of like burning witches or heretics or something like that. And what I really saw was it's like, a true teacher coming out and a healer coming out of that matrix and shining the light, and then people are drawn to it. It's contagious, right? So they have to just whack-a-mole, beat that stuff down, before it can get anywhere. And now it's like there's way too many of us on the planet. They can't do it. And they're trying to, and they've got lots and lots of methods. Like somebody mentioned 5G, and don't worry too much about that. There's a bigger, wider picture going on, and everything, all the technological interference with us right now, it's all can be overcome when our own energetic field, our own autonomy, like pushing us into our own spaceship, our own connected to the earth, our electromagnetic field can protect us from everything. And maybe that's part of the process of this accelerated growth. It's like something really intense to work against, so we can claim that. But these soul groups coming together, it's contagious. And then one's activated and then more activate. So no wonder. And that was kind of what I saw, like going to get these heretics or these leaders or these spiritual new ideas or healers, that were trying to take the pain away. A lot of times healers that were persecuted were trying to take the pain away from women in childbirth and helping them with herbal birth control and stuff like that. Control energies don't want that, right? They want women barefoot and pregnant and completely depleted and too many children to love and, everybody all messed up. And so it's an elaborate plan to keep us down, except for that it can't work ultimately. And we already won. And a big part of the winning and the celebrating is coming together and finding each other. So I'm super excited. And again, gratitude so much, thankfulness for being a part of this movement and following the work, and exciting time, this exciting and intense time on the planet. And just a little word about gratitude, since this was the theme of the Q&A today. Gratitude is kind of troublesome in the New Age community because like, just be thankful, like have gratitude, attitude of gratitude, and everything you can manifest whatever you want. And it's like, you can't fake that. You cannot fake it. It needs to well up from an organic space. And the more you try to have gratitude for when you're not feeling that inside, the less gratitude you can have. But then again, that true gratitude, when you're like, and the gratitude I'm talking about today is this gratitude of coming so far in your process and you finally can see why. And it's like, it's like, oh my God, this horrible thing's happening to me, horrible things. And how do I get out of it? What am I doing? And you're just in it. And then sometimes you get to the other side of the situation and you're like, well, thank God that got me here because I was on the wrong path, or I wasn't seeing clearly, or, and so that's the galactic center activation, is this bigger, wider gratitude that's available for like, holy crap, we are in this amazing experience on earth, aware in our consciousness of going through spiritual ascension, changing our bodies to light, changing the earth into light. And we get to do it here together. And holy crap, it might be so much more amazing than we can imagine. And it makes all of that lifetimes of persecution worth it, perhaps. So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you are in the US, and celebrating and connection and finding that true connection and that true gratitude in your heart with the cosmos, the cosmic heart consciousness that we've just had this, still having this massive activation with the galactic center. And can find, and just remember that you're connected, and the isolation is just a lie, and it's just a place that we move through, but it's not true. So I love you, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Until the next update, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.